Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back to the podcast. Back to Tomboy Official. Day 8 of Aina's Keys to Personal Freedom. Book by Aina Brion. We are stopping at page 21. It's going to be called Mirror Work. We'll look at that tomorrow. Finishing up the current chapter. It is Deeper Than You. I like this chapter. I've liked every section I've read so far. But yeah, this one kind of has some interesting points about, I guess, kind of ending that topic about, generational patterns, ending cycles. And I kind of like how she goes into talking about, different generations of people, and not in a way to invalidate anybody else's situation that they've experienced, not saying it's real or just get over it, but for people who are ready and willing to and feel like it's part of their goal to kind of like end generational cycles of problems. This is a good kind of topic to look into. Um, she goes again talking about perception being the only thing that can really be changed, because the past is the past and there's nothing we can do to change or alter that. But then also, not only is the past, but she used a method of learning about some people's pasts, um, to try to clarify more about their um, their behaviors that were interfering in her life when she was growing up. And I think most people will notice that the majority of people that we find that cause these types of issues, in other people's lives, a lot of times they don't admit to it, or they like to fib and lie about what actually happened. I think I've talked about this before, that I literally witnessed, certain family members just BSing about stuff that they've done. And I'm like, I'm just thinking in my head, like, were we in the same room? Like, you know, and even during that time, I kind of brought some stuff up with another family member, and they tried to gaslight me, and it was just kind of like, really, um, but that's just how it is. And I've gotten mixed messages from these types of people, as well. Like, I remember one person years ago, called, and it was the first conversation I'd had with them in a very long time, and they started talking to me saying, like, I'm sorry for what happened in the past when you were a kid, and like, they felt bad about it, and they always felt guilt and wrong about it. But then, I don't know, let's say 20 years later, I bring it up with them, and they're just like, that's not really what it was. It's like, what? And it's happened with multiple people, and it's like, I'm not there to put people on the defensive, but I do put things out there. And especially when it comes to people talking about, like, basically the way it came up was, I had some family members kind of in multiple different segments kind of bring up on their own, concepts about like abuse and mistreatment and things like that, like, just kind of just on the fly. you know like, one person would say something like, like it's not uncommon, like, in my family, to overhear adults talking, being like if they see a kid like acting out in the store or something, be like, that kid needs to get beat, or that kid needs to get spanked, or whatever. And or somebody, you know mentioning something along those lines or whatever, just bringing it up. And so, I never really was like, okay, I'm gonna like call people on their BS because I'm older now. I don't have to deal with those situations now. Like nobody's doing anything against me, and if they do, like, they're gonna get a lawsuit on their hands. Like I'm not, I don't put up with BS like that anymore. Like I'm not a little kid, but you know, um, I kind of made it a point where I'm like, I'm gonna stand my ground and at least speak my mind on these things, just so people know that I don't think that type of thing is okay, you know. And they were, the times I've brought it up, I've never had anybody say like, "Oh yeah, you're right. I don't think that abusing people is okay." Like they kind of just say some other thing that makes it seem like, they feel like there's some, right to it, like that they have some right to be able to do that kind of thing or whatever, and then they don't really challenge the situation at all. But for me, I'm like, well, if people know how I feel, about it, they can't say that they, don't know now, you know. Like maybe they didn't know then. Maybe they never thought about it then. Maybe they were looking at it from another perspective and never heard anybody say, like, hey, this is a wrong thing to do, because they were raised around it. Like, they all think like that. So it's very kind of weird to me, that they kind of don't really have like education surrounding different things like that. Um, and it's a little bit frustrating too, but I think people that are my generation and my age in my family, like my cousins, my siblings, we all kind of know what's up. We're all like, a lot of my um, family members, we work or have worked in mental health. That's not uncommon. Like a lot of us, we went through an educational system. We know what APS reports are and CPS reports are, and like, that kind of stuff. Like we're close enough to like, medicine and the medical fields and stuff like that, that we kind of know and have been very well trained against, like people, being exposed to harm. And so, we kind of know, like our generation knows, but then we still have all these other people from past generations that kind of like, you know, don't really seem like they've learned that. Um, and so that kind of thing sort of worries me. But also, that generation is no longer having children. All their children are adults and they're all like my age. But I do see how my siblings, my cousins, how we all treat the other generation, um, and, there's a lot of like tiptoeing around stuff. But, we know the toxic people in the family and we kind of know what's up. And, you don't have to say it in so many words, but, there's a lot of support where it's like, you know, like if somebody tries to like pop off on one end and somebody else will be like, oh, like why are you acting like that? They didn't do anything to you, or like whatever, it's kind of like they'll just kind of like put it out there. They're like, I see what you're doing and it's not okay, and you're not, gonna get away with just like openly doing these kinds of things. And a lot of that has come up a lot, like family functions and all kind of nonsense. It's just like that's how it goes. But um, I mean, I have great family members too. They're not always just like everybody running around just doing whatever, but you get a couple drinks in some people, and you really don't know where they're gonna go with things sometimes. But yeah, like looking at a lot of things, like the looking at the um like maybe like past experiences with certain people, just trying to kind of like really delve into that kind of thing. you know, anything that's not current, none of that can be changed. You know, bringing it up doesn't help because they don't really see things the same way. You know, they don't really see it like exactly what they were doing as wrong, you know, or they don't interpret it that way, or they kind of are conflicted about it. Like I said, I've had people say that they felt guilt about things, and then like 10, 15 years or so, maybe 20 years later, they're like, oh, like that's, you know, like they kind of can't really, you know, accept kind of what they even mentioned. You know, it's like, but I'm not gonna get in a whole discussion about it because, like, with them, because it's like, what's the point? You know, at a certain point, it's like, what's the point of all that? You know, but yeah, like those types of cycles exist in a lot of our families. They exist, and you know, I like even before I've read this segment of this chapter, it did kind of come up in my life not too long ago where I started thinking about these certain people. Because, like, someone in my family made a comment of, like, you know, that's what it's like when somebody, you know, or they were like, oh, I think this person needs a psychiatrist because, you know, the way that they are, and that's how they're like that because they were raised in a war zone, or they were saying like, well, I was reading something about people who were raised in war zones, and that's kind of what, you know, like it seems like that's part of the problem this person is having. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, it is, you know. And it's like, it's just, it was just kind of, I guess, in a way, kind of like fascinating to hear that, from somebody of that generation, that like, oh, so you actually looked it up and you noticed that there's a problem, and you went and looked it up and you found some kind of connection, and enough that they mentioned it. And I'm like, yeah, that's what it is, you know. And you know, like I kind of just left, you know, it was just something that was mentioned like in passing. And yeah, but yeah, well, I just came outside right now anyways. But yeah, so that kind of thing was, you know, something mentioned in passing, and I was like, it kind of took me by surprise, but I kind of didn't think much into it. And then I was starting to think sometime after that, I was like, you know, so some people are kind of catching on that it's okay to kind of talk about psychological related stuff. Like, maybe not everybody, but they're kind of like, you know, for someone in my family to be like, oh, maybe this person needs a psychiatrist. I mean, that's like a pretty big move. I mean, it doesn't maybe seem like it. Maybe in like this generation for millennials, it's like, yeah, well, duh. You know what I mean? For us, it's kind of obvious, but you know, um, depending, you know, culturally, there are just some cultures where it's just not, you know, seen as acceptable, or even to like educate about why people go to therapy or see psychiatrists or get help for things. You know, I've heard people say stuff like, oh, well, you know, just because something happens in the past doesn't mean you ever need to think about it or bring it up. And it's like, yeah, well, you don't have to, but you still got to deal with it. Like, you can't, it's not going to go away if it's impacting you in a way that it's making you impact other people. Then, okay, there's a problem, you know, that needs to get resolved. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm just saying, you know, I know a lot of, you know, problems that have been, you know, brought into my awareness that like I was like, okay, I can be open-minded to like hear this, and I kind of see where people are coming from. And from my end, it might not seem like it's too big of a deal, but it's like, well, if more than one person mentions something to me, you know, well, maybe there's something to that, you know. And you know, like just, I'm working on it on my own. Like, there's not much more I can do than just work on it, and work on a lot of other stuff surrounding it too. But, like, I don't know if I'll ever be perfect with things, but also I don't think I can get worse. I mean, just developing awareness and trying to just develop a lot of just kind of skills around different things. I mean, that helps, but like, yeah, I really don't think that that a lot of people in older generations, depending on the culture, like some cultures really, didn't really have any kind of help available to them, and they kind of just went with what they were taught for however many generations. And I definitely have noticed, I've had a lot of people in my family, elders that were, brought up in not so ideal situations, and they survived through it. That's not uncommon for Black people, indigenous people, to have, generations of just people who were just beat down for, like, like my parents' generation, the generation before that, which was my grandparents' generation, people getting displaced from all different kinds of places, people living in poverty, raising I don't know how many kids, with their own problems, and not even being able to afford to raise their own kids and having to get other people to step in, and great grandparents, people who were indigenous to the land that had some issues with some tribal issues and some other issues with other colonizers coming in and all sorts of other stuff. The generation before that, I mean, I don't know if we even have to talk about slavery, but I mean, like, there you go. I mean, like, I'm not that many generations removed, and I think I'm probably the first generation that's reaping benefits from anything, like, I wasn't raised with, like, 7 or 9 or 12 brothers and sisters, like, all sharing, like, in a 2-bedroom house, or like split up, living between different aunts and uncles, wearing rags and no shoes, nothing like that, like, I wasn't raised like that, like, I had enough to eat, I went to school every day, I had hobbies and interests, and went to school, got education, had an easy time finding work, relatively speaking, I was able to, find ways to support myself. Like, it's not like it's, there really weren't as many roadblocks for me, compared to if I even look at my parents or their generations. It's like, if I would have been raised in either of the areas where my parents were raised, there's no way I would have had any access to any of the opportunities I have now. No way. Like, they just don't exist unless you take a long route. Like, one route is get married, another route is move, flee. You have to just start from scratch somewhere, and literally from the bottom up, with whatever dollars in your pocket, start working, and saving and scrimping until you can just level up every so often, like, okay, now I can afford to eat all my meals every day and pay the rent, things like that. It's like starting from that level, versus, like, I was just born into, like, a house where there was food and warmth of, like, electricity, running water, like, I think my parents weren't raised with indoor plumbing. I remember going to my grandma's house as a kid, and there was an outhouse that was still out there, but they always had indoor plumbing since I was born. But I know that, my folks weren't born, my folks weren't raised with indoor plumbing, electricity, educational opportunities. It's like, you finish high school and then college is, like, optional, but usually after high school, you're thinking about marriage, you're starting maybe work, and then thinking about marriage, and you're getting the heck out of your parents' house because they got too many dang kids. You're not trying to be there with them and do all that. And so even just thinking about it, like, that's one generation. That's my parents. Like, that's not, like, my great 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 grandparents. It's like, to think of like people that weren't even really raised with like electricity and running water, or indoor plumbing for all their lives. I mean, like they had it at some point, but for all their lives. And even when I think about where, like, my parents were raised in different countries, but like when I think about even going past that, like thinking about like just kind of what it just looks like on the surface, what it would have looked like to just generally like live in those areas. It's like I could have gone to school as much as I wanted, there, like, my options would have been becoming a teacher, getting married to somebody who has maybe a position in the community somewhere where they're wealthy enough to kind of like at least get all your meals made and met and pay your rent and support yourself on the day-to-day basis, and maybe save if you're lucky, have a little bit if there's emergencies. And that's if you're part of a system where you're actually making money. Like, I've had family members that were living off the land, like they weren't making money. There was not money. It's like we're growing things and raising animals and we live off of this, there's no money, So it's kind of like thinking about those types of people, and then thinking about me, it's like I sit in front of a computer most of the day if I feel like it, and I got a car to drive around town in one of the biggest cities on the planet, and I go where I want, I do what I want, if I want something, if I want to leave town, I go do it. If I want to pay for something, I go do it. Like, I don't think my parents understand that. They don't understand, like, oh, like, how do you have, like, all this opportunity and then you just want to, like, do whatever the heck, It's like they support it and they let me do it and they don't complain, but I can see that, like, they don't get it. Like, oh, you're going snowboarding? Like, why? Like, who has time for snowboarding? You know what I mean? But it's like, I don't have kids. I don't have a spouse. Like, I don't have anything like that where it's like, if I were there, let me do the math here real quick. So, I mean, you can't really compare generations. It's like comparing apples and oranges. But if I had followed the same exact path as my parents, I would have a 14-year-old kid right now. I mean, I could barely even, like, try to find a way to pay my own rent in Southern California. I can't imagine having a 14-year-old, at my age, and having a 14-year-old living out here, and having had a spouse for probably 14, 15 years by now. That to me is just like mind-blowing. But for them, like, that was like the norm. It's like, that's what you do because it's part of survival. Like, for me, it's like, that's not part of survival. Like, why would I even want to think about, like, that, Like, to me, it's like, that's a lot more to think about than just fending for myself, Like, trying to fend for, like, a whole family, It's like that to me. And then thinking, like, the older generations are getting older, someone's going to have to take care of them, I can't take care of me, a spouse, a kid or two. Well, I would have had more than one kid by now. Actually, I would have had 3 kids. I would have had a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a kid that was maybe like 6. And so I would have had 3 kids, as well as, trying to get a house, like in LA, a house in LA for 3 kids where they all have their own bedrooms. I mean, like, that means you got to have like a 4-bedroom house. And probably more than 1 bathroom if you're lucky. It's like, that's easily in a $1 million house, easily in LA. Like, hands down, like, there are cheaper properties, but it's like, if you want a nice like 4-bedroom, 2-bath out here, easy $1 million, easy $1 million, like, like, that's just how it is. I don't have $1 million, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, when I think about it, it's like, okay, like, that is like, but to see that people were able to kind of be resilient, get themselves out of certain positions, it gives me a lot of hope. It's like, if I think about all the things they had to deal with to get to where they're at now versus all the things I don't have to deal with just to try to make it work on a basic level, it's like, yeah, like, I got a lot of stuff in my genes that, helps me get there, but at the same time, it's not always perfect. Um, it's not always easy. It's not always, like, I don't know. Our generation is just, we've got our own hangups and issues. We're on our second recession. Like, I don't even know what more to say other than that. It's like we've got our own issues. Like, we deal with a lot of, you know, intellectual types of things, a lot of different kind of systemic issues because, you know, the racism and the sexism and the all these other kind of things that we have to deal with are like, um, I don't know, like it's just it's different. Like it's not, people can't discriminate against you in some ways, but they can definitely still screw you over. Um, like you can definitely get denied services, for all kinds of reasons. People are a little more savvy about their prejudices. They're a little more savvy about their scamming and scheming. Um, the effort you put out doesn't always equal what you get back. There's not a lot of stability or just being like completely self-made, where you can just like work a job, work your way up in a career and retire in that career, actually getting a better pay rate every year or every couple years or so. Like there are fields like that, but it's not like you just get a degree and that's just how your life is going to go till you're 65. You're going to retire and you're going to have a pension and all your retirement, you're going to retire as a millionaire. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not as easy as it seems on the surface. Like you really have to play a system in our generation. There really isn't a lot of stability, and it's you're not able to be as stable yourself. Like there aren't a lot of options for like living off the land, having a trade, building it up. Like yeah, you can do it. It's not that you can't, but it's like the majority of people don't do that. The majority of people work for corporations, um, and that's just kind of how it goes. Um, and these corporations are not loyal, like they're not gonna keep you around till you're 65. They get theirs and then they're done. They're like, well, they'll just screw everybody else over and just be like, sorry. Like I've talked about how I've gotten screwed out of pay rates and screwed out of all kinds of other stuff, and that's me. I knew something was fishy, but I was, I've had instances where I knew something was up, but I'm like, well, I'm already in here, and I was still getting a benefit from it, in the first place, but, not the benefit that they said. And they blatantly lied, and, I got gaslighted about some stuff, and, some other, it's more than one thing. There's a list of stuff that I'm like, I've worked for scheming people before because they think I'm an idiot, it's like, people pretending like they're giving you a leg up by trying to give you a little bit of a raise when you do the math and you're like, well, I'm working less hours, but you're going to give me $1 more an hour, but I'm working 8 less hours a week. And so that doesn't really equal, I'm basically making, you know, it just didn't make any sense. I'm like, okay, you're giving me like a raise, $1 raise. Like I'm really not making more money, but the quota for work is the same quota. So I'm working less hours and still making them the same amount of money that they're bringing in while they're paying me less. So it's kind of like, I mean, I know how much it costs, the assessments we did, the client care plans that we would do, the notes we would write. Those all have dollar values that companies get reimbursed for by insurance. I'm not stupid. I know what those numbers look like, and they're a lot more than what I was getting paid. I wasn't getting paid 100% of the work that I put in. And then pile more work on top of that, and still pay somebody the same rate. It's kind of like, I see what's up. Like, I know what it is, but I always was kind of out for myself too, and I was getting something out of it too. And I always told myself, I'm like, well, when I stop getting anything out of this internally for myself, for my own intellectual goals, for my own just like client care goals, for my own like goals of kind of like learning a specific kind of healthcare system and things like that. I really was into that kind of stuff, and I really loved it and liked it. It was like the school of life kind of, I opted in. I was, for people who are into compassion work and educational types of things where you're like constantly learning and researching and like finding all this data and like, analyzing all these things. And, if you really like to use your mind like that on a regular basis, you get a lot of benefit out of work like that, even when you're not getting paid good, but, I'm not going to I feel like I've gone on so many tangents about this topic. If you want to hear more, go back to like May and June and all those other months when I first moved back to LA. I had plenty to say, especially during the Rona, like 2020, 2021, around when I started this podcast, all my bitching and moaning about the roommates and all other nonsense in the economy and everything. It's like, we know what's up. But, yeah, like, good topics, good topics to kind of think on. I've run some life histories through my mind as far as like people that I've known that I've had to interact with that have maybe been in the habit of doing a lot of wrong, not just towards myself but towards others. And almost all of those people have some kind of deep-seated issue that they didn't fully deal with. And so, I'm not saying that, those people shouldn't have compassion from somewhere, that those people can't heal, that they can't get better. All of us have done some wrong to somebody, at least in the past. Like, none of us is without fault. But when it becomes like a pattern where it's like your pattern is interfering with somebody else's, well-being, or, making another traumatic pattern in somebody else's life, and now they're going to grow up with all these other problems that they're going to have to deal with, and God forbid they pass that all on to other generations because they never dealt with it and never got help for it. It's like, at least we know that there are options to get help for things. And so, I'm like, it could be worse, it could be worse. But, yeah, like I feel like it's kind of a lucky kind of concept to come across, for people who are struggling with those types of topics, or types of things in their lives. It is kind of, one of those topics that I think can be very life-changing for a lot of people, just slowly starting to look at different patterns in your own life and other people's lives. I mean, you don't even have to point it out to them, I don't know if that's even like wise, because a lot of times they can't hear it, like, what's the point, like, you can point it out to them until you're blue in the face, and they're not going to be like, oh yeah, you're right, I'm sorry for all the wrong that I did. That kind of like hallmark moment doesn't really always happen. Sometimes it might, but it's not normal. I mean, I've worked with tons of clients where we've had their parents in the room and other things where I'm just thinking like, I wish that we didn't have this session with other family members because these people are off the rails, like, and I'm just like sitting there like, I see why you are my client because of these people that have been around you your whole life. It's like, of course you're going to be sitting in a chair talking to a therapist, good for you. Like, that's a good move. And it's like, even me being in a session with their parents or their loved ones, family members for just a little bit, the stuff they would let slide. Like, I've literally had people's parents who one family member was literally stealing their benefit money out of their bank account and leaving that other client to live like in a closet or a garage or some kind of basically they didn't have heating or whatever because they were able to find somebody who would rent them like some kind of space for super, super cheap, but they had the money for an apartment. And this other person is taking like $1,000, $1,200 from them right when the money drops. This client of mine is seeing 0 cent of that money, scrimping, asking for chips and cookies from the snack closet at work because they don't have enough money for food. you know, and they're like, this really, really helps me. And it's like, this isn't, you know, we can't be giving you like snacks to eat. Like, you have, you know, like, of course we did it, but I'm just saying, like, this isn't the way, you know, like, this can't go on that much longer. And just the red tape it takes to get somebody like that out of somebody's life, and having other families trying to get them, other family members trying to get them to intervene and being like, look what this other family member is doing to your, to my client, to your, you know, family member. And they'll just be like, oh no, that, you know, they know more what they're doing or whatever. And then eventually, you know, they call and they realize, they're like, this person's, you know, financially abusing this person. You know, it's like months having to deal with that kind of thing for months. And I'm just like sitting across from somebody, I'm like, I can't stand this person, I cannot stand this person, you know. And they are like, they'll be in the chair every day, like with the session, and being like, talking themselves up and about how good they are. Meanwhile, I know they just stole my client's money. You know, it's kind of like, what the hell, you know? Like, some people, you know, really are just troubled, you know? And it's like, who knows? I think this other person was literally just spending this other person's money, you know? And I'm like, you know, the red tape I had on my end just to get, you know, some kind of professional, like a social worker involved to like check on the situation. There was so much red tape. Like, it wasn't like a clear situation. There were all these other things involved. And I'm just like, that's tragic and that sucks and that's terrible. But it took a while for other people, even when they knew, to even like help, you know. And I'm just kind of like, that's just one person, you know. Almost every client whose parents I met, most of those parents or other family members, if it wasn't parents, a spouse, you know, maybe a housemate, all these other people that were involved with my clients, the majority of them, I was like, I can't even stand you, and I have to meet you maybe once every other month for like 20 minutes, and I don't even want to do it. You know, it's kind of like, I'm like, I don't want to be around these people. Like, how do you live with them? How do you share a bedroom with somebody like that? You know, it's like, and you can't afford to move. It's not like they were in a condition where they could like work because they had all these symptoms. Like, they couldn't work enough to support themselves to live in Southern California. And so, like, just working with this system, you know, just helped me more with realizing, like, you know, like, I know people always make this stupid joke about like, people who go into psychology, you know, it's because they're trying to work out their own problems. And like, so what, you know? Like, if you can use your field to work out some of your own issues or gain insight into your own life, like, as long as you're not taking it into the sessions and doing harm to the clients, as long as they're getting what they need fully out of the sessions and they're not getting like shortchanged or whatever, and it's not like I'm in sessions venting like this and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my job and they don't pay me and blah blah blah, you know, like, it wasn't like that. It's like, you know, that's the kind of stuff like off the record, outside of work, that's when you talk about it. Like, you don't talk about it during work. Like, you can still be completely professional and learning about a field at the same time that it can benefit you. I mean, what about people who go into like economics and finance and things like that, and, you know, are able to have great financial success, financial freedom, getting out of generational cycles of debt and things, and like extreme debt and things like that, that's also very detrimental to health as well. And nobody's like, oh, you shouldn't go into finance because you probably have financial problems. It's like, that doesn't make any sense, you know? If you have financial problems, freaking learn about finance, you know? Learn about it, you know? If you have problems with other things, learn about it, you know? Like, but, you know, it doesn't mean someone's going to carry it into their work. Like, just because someone has problems with their finances and they get a job in finance does not mean that they're going to be like stealing money and like taking out loans on their company and stuff and getting into debt just because they have access to knowledge of how to get money. You know, like, that doesn't make any sense, you know. But, you know, like, people like to kind of trip over psych. They kind of like to, you know, it's such a taboo field still that I think people just have a lot of negative impressions about it, just because they don't want to admit we all have problems, you know. Every one of us has some kind of a problem. Maybe it's not a diagnosable issue. Maybe it's like, not quite like a DSM type like thing where, you know, you're gonna get a full coded diagnosis, you know, and you're gonna need medications and lifelong therapy or whatever. Like, not everybody has situations that are that like on the extreme level, and if you do and you're getting help for it, then good, you're getting help for it. Like, what more can really be said? um you know, if somebody has physical health problems and they're going to like physical therapy or whatever, no one's going to be like, oh, don't do that, don't get help for what you need, you know. But there is, I think, with psychology, maybe the taboo around it is because people do notice, like, hey, maybe I'm doing something that's screwing somebody else up, or maybe I've done things that has been like wrong. And I think psychology points it out. You know, it's one of the fields that just points out point blank, like, here's a list of all your situations. You know, you talk to this person who assesses you and screens you, and then they start identifying all your problems, and it's like, wait, was I really ready to like hear that or work on that? Like, I wasn't, you know, like, I was coming in with this problem because I want to work on this specific thing here. I'm not ready to touch that other stuff. And they just put it all out on the table. It's like, here's a list of all your stuff. Like, I think you should work on this one, you know. And you know, usually it'll be the harder things that are more impacting, that need the most help, that are the harder things to work on. But also, once they're worked on, they can help your life the most. But you know, your life can potentially improve once those bigger chunks are kind of taken out. You know, it's almost like if you're I don't know who I'm talking to generationally, but people who have ridden bikes before, or if you've ever like ridden a bike or rollerbladed or something along those lines and fell really bad and like skinned your knee to a point where you kind of slid a little bit, and then like there's gravel or some kind of like objects like in your wound, it's like, it kind of makes sense to, like, yeah, you got to pick them all out, but if you pick out the bigger ones, you know, that's going to go a lot further than leaving them there. You know, like, you don't just pick out the little bitty itty bitty pieces, then like, all right, I'll just leave these big chunks of rocks, pieces of glass or whatever stuck in my leg, and like just move on and try to act like everything's going to be fine. Like, yeah, you're going to probably be limping and having problems for the rest of your life, you know, like, you got to fix it. But I don't know why it is with psychological things, people don't want to fix it. They're just like, nah, I don't want to fix that, you know. Fix my broken leg, fix my broken arm. Don't fix my psychological issues. But it goes multiple generations, you know. It can keep going on. Like, we can all choose to pass it. Let's just keep passing it on to the next generation. Even if you don't have kids, you're probably going to eventually interact with someone younger than you, or interact with somebody who interacts with other people who are younger than you. And, you know, if you are a part of screwing up aspects of their lives, they're going to be passing that on to those people too, of younger generations. That's just how it works. You know, there's no way around it, you know, other than sticking in a bubble and just never like doing anything different. But I think I've talked plenty long about that. I should probably stop. But I think I had too much coffee. But also, yeah, so let me get to my day. Just my general day today. It was Weed Wednesday. I woke up way too early at like 5 in the morning. And I was like, oh, it's 5 and it's dark. And then I saw the light coming out and it got blue. Then it got sunny. And somehow at like 7:30 in the morning, it started raining while it was sunny. And, you know, I was a little irritated with that because I was like, well, maybe I'll go to the beach. And then I realized, well, maybe I won't. And it was Weed Wednesday today. So I was like, well, if it's going to rain, I'm just going to smoke out before breakfast because that's what I do on Weed Wednesdays anyways. I choose what day I want to do that on, or what time and how much, and when I want to kind of function again. My function time was set for 4 p.m., but I actually, after my lunch, had a nap, I rested, and so that was around 12:30, 12:40. I rested till like 1:40, and then I had quite a bit of coffee around that time. I did, what was I doing? Like, I've been still trying to watch Stiesel because I just realized that series, they're going to take it off Netflix March 24th, which is this Friday. So I've got tonight, tomorrow, and Friday to finish this up. Um, yeah, I did some kind of housekeeping as far as like emails, trying to get my spam under control. Um, I did some recording in the morning on a different podcast, and then erased some of it because I realized I was really stoned and just, I don't know what I was talking about, and I basically was like not on topic, and I was just like, I don't even know what to do with this, so I just deleted it and just did something really short. I know I watched some of the show, did a little bit of reading, um, tried to kind of wake. Um, I've been looking for a charger of mine. I lost my watch charger. My watch is smart my I guess it's technically a smartwatch. It is at 29%. Yesterday it was at 39%, and I can't find the charger for the life of me. I have a little pouch where I keep all my little cables and stuff, and I tell myself, like, always put it back. And the last time I remember using this charger was when I was in San Diego, like March 3rd, and I slacked on it up until today. I also had that TP-Link wall charger. So I had the USB charger, the wall charger for the TP-Link. I think my watch was being charged in the wall at the hotel. That's the last time I remember seeing either of those items. I'm pretty sure I've charged my watch since March 3rd, because it doesn't tend to last that long, especially because I knew I wore it to the concert, and I wore it to the rave, and so I know that I definitely got some hard exercising in those days. So I don't, and I remember, let me see, when did I go to the mountains? I remember wearing it then as well, because I went snowboarding, I think, on a Thursday, and then on the Friday I had the watch and I was exercising, and I don't think I left it at that hotel, but I'm trying to think, because I've been to so many places, and like now I'm just like, I can't remember where I left it, but I've checked all my stuff, so unless it got just like bundled into some clothing somewhere, I mean, it's not in the laundry, it's not in the living room, I don't go that many places in the house. I can't find it anywhere, so I have no idea. Either someone, maybe the housekeeping at the hotel took it, or maybe they left it and the next person who rented out that hotel room took it. The lost and found, it wasn't there. It's possible that a staff has it, but I didn't call till today, which is like about 20 or 15 or so days later. And I thought about it earlier, but I was like, it'll pop up somewhere. But I really don't think I've gone that long without charging my watch, because usually it takes, it doesn't last like a month. And especially because when I go to the gym, I take it with me, and I've gone to the gym quite a bit. So I don't know, like maybe I left it in a rental car. I've got no clue where this thing is at. And I don't know if I'm ever going to find it. So I went and ordered another watch charger that should come in tomorrow. But I'm just annoyed because this is like the last time I ordered, I had to order 2 chargers, right? I ordered 2 of the USB cable chargers. And then I found my old one. So I had 3 of them. So I don't know how I can't find 3 of them, like I think I'm feeling like maybe I put things, because sometimes I put things in bags, if that makes sense. Like I just like put it in a bag and like shove it in a drawer or something. Like I'm cleaning and I'm not like paying attention to organizing stuff, and it's stuff like that I don't see. But I really do try to keep cables and things in one spot. And I remember the last time I charged it, I think, was in my bedroom next to my yoga mat, and I remember saying I need to put all my chargers back into that pouch. But I have no clue where it is. So I don't really know. I don't freaking know. I don't know what to do. So I'm like, I'll just order another one before my watch fully dies. Because I don't want to lose all the data that's stored. Like, I think it stores in the app anyways, but I don't know. The app sucks. It's just my own thing. I like to kind of have it. I like to, write it down in a little journal that I have of 30 calendar days of workouts. I have 30 calendar days that I've been doing of these books. This is the third 30 days that I'm using, but those days aren't the same as the workout days. So I'm trying to keep track of like when I'm active, when I'm not active, all that kind of stuff. So I don't really know, guys. I don't really know. I feel a little uncertain about like how I could have lost 3 chargers and a wall charger. Like, they gotta be somewhere. Like, there's no way. Like, I can't say I don't leave the house that much, but I feel like, I don't know. Like, it's not impossible that I left it somewhere and somebody took it, or maybe it fell out of the car, or maybe I shoved a bunch of stuff. Like, sometimes when I'm packing, I'll just, like, coil everything up, wrap it all around each other, and just, like, stick it in one of my cargo pockets or something. It's possible it fell out of the car when I was getting gas or something, like, fell out of my pocket or something. I don't really know, but I just don't know, guys. Like, I really don't know. It's so weird to me that that's lost. So I did spend some time off and on looking for it today when I thought of new places to look. Didn't find it. And then, yeah, but I pretty much spent from about 1:40ish, trying to kind of get my energy back up again. And I don't know if I watched a couple hours of Stiesel or what I did for like a couple hours. I know I was looking for this stuff, cleaning out some stuff while I was looking, and, organizing my emails and just like stuff that like I don't really like spending time doing, but I kind of spent time doing it. I didn't like fully clean, but like I kind of put some stuff in certain places and threw some stuff away, which is good enough for today, because today is my lazy day and I wasn't really going to do much anyways. But I made some dinner for me and my mom. I don't know what time that was. Probably around 5:20 the food was done. And sometime before that, up until 5, when I was preheating the oven and putting the stuff in the oven, I got in a little yoga and foam rolling and practiced my balance on the balancing board. That's kind of what I counted as my movement for today, my slight amount of movement. It was probably like, let me see, about 30 minutes of that, maybe 40 minutes, because I did kind of stop my clock in between. And while I was doing that, I was listening to Chosen Family podcast most of the time. Let's see how far into that I got. Let's see if I can open that while I have this app recording. Yeah, so 35 minutes. It looks like I got 35 minutes into that episode. So that means I would have been 35 minutes total, kind of like getting any exercise. That's fine, I didn't want to not do any movement, and I do feel a little better since I have coffee in my system, caffeine, and I have, I had some, I didn't mention it on here, but for Weed Wednesday, I ordered groceries this morning. They got to the house around 8 a.m. And the groceries I ordered, I was like, let me order some slightly healthier stuff. Like, it wasn't fully healthy, but slightly. Like, I got this Suja green juice, like a large size. And, I'm back to doing a little bit of counting calories, not like fully, but like a little bit. So working on stuff like that. I got a book I'm going to be reading this evening that I'm not really going to talk about on here, but because it has like no relevance to this podcast whatsoever. But I like to read books, so I'm going to read this one probably pretty quick, because I think I want to give it to my friend's mom if I get to see her on April 1st or 2nd or so. So, I mean, it's not a long book. It's like a 64-page book, super short thing. So, I should be able to get it done. But yeah, uh I should probably study tonight too. I'll probably be up till like midnight, 11:45ish. Like last night I did a whole sleep hygiene routine and it didn't really work good for me. I don't think I liked melatonin in my system. I don't think I liked that at all. Um no, I actually did not like that at all. I'll be honest. It wasn't really my thing. Um but I don't know, I might have it tonight just cuz I had so much dang coffee. Uh or I might just be sleep deprived. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's wise to be sleep deprived, but I don't think melatonin is for me. Like when I don't know, like whatever. I don't want to talk about it. I'm just not a melatonin fan. I prefer CBD, CBN. I'm not really a melatonin fan too much. Um, let's see what else. That's mostly what I did today. I've got some studying I want to do. Um, I want to at least get through like another one or two chapters tonight, but I don't know, guys. I don't feel like it, but I might just do it anyways because I've done a lot of stuff I don't feel like, and I've got all this energy anyways. So might as well put it to use. And if I'm gonna stay up late, then I can just stay up late. But I did have that. I don't know if I really napped. I feel like I dozed slightly during the hour, from like 12:40 to 1:40 ish. I feel like I dozed. Um, but I don't think I slept too hard or anything. I just think I kind of dozed off. I was listening to some like ASMR, and just kind of dozed, and that was nice for me. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Um, but yeah, I'm just kind of chilling. Honestly, I'm trying to like, you know, I don't know. Like today was a little weird just because I got stoned really early, so of course the day's gonna be strange. Um, but I willingly did that to myself, like just because I was like, this is part of kind of a routine that I've fallen into for Wednesdays, just because it's like, okay, well, I can give myself permission to kind of partake in some of this kind of stuff and just leave it at that. Like, I'll partake of it, leave it like that, and I have one day midweek where I just do whatever I want to do, and then I can't say that I'm too exhausted because I spent like half the day doing nothing. Um, and so I did take a break midweek, and so like a true break, like a kind of almost partyish break. It's not like I was just like taking a break but watching movies or whatever. Like I was, like I was stoned. Like that. What more can you really do as a break, if you're not really going to be doing anything, leaving the house or anything. Um, I don't know what to say. It's not beach season, so I don't really know what to do with myself. This is weird. For Southern California culture and people who are beach bum types, I just don't even know what to do with myself. Like, all I can think about is snowboarding because I'm like, well, it's the only thing I can do that, like, makes sense. But I really do like the balance board and working on my balance and stuff. I'm like, it makes me think about skimboarding and like all kinds of water sport type of boarding. And I've never really been like good at that kind of stuff, but skimboarding, I was always into skimboarding because you don't have to be like the world's strongest swimmer. I mean, if you go into the waves, yeah, but if you skim like parallel to the waves, like parallel to the shore, like the beach, to where the waves kind of break and then like pull back in, like I think you're kind of more set. But all right, this is long. I hope this wasn't like too much like sounding unhinged or whatever, like, but I don't know, food for thought. I'm kind of more hyper than usual. I don't know what time I'm recording tomorrow, but I kind of checked today and I was like, well, nobody listened to the other episode yet, so let me just delay this one. Plus, I was not really in a mindset to be recording either. But now I'm kind of back to normal, but caffeinated, fed, a little bit exercised. Not like in an exorcism type of demon way, but I don't know, maybe I got some stuff out of me today. Like maybe that was necessary. I'm not talking necessarily about my rant, but just I think maybe there is something to, just having days where you like force a break. Because, I was kind of going by what I've been told, where it's like, you take Saturdays and Sundays off. That's it. But I'm like, I think I need 3 days off, not 2. For my own well-being and mental health, ever since I even reduced my work week to 32 hours, I was like, this is so much better. Even though I was studying a lot of it, it was just so much better. Like, I was like, I need my brain to be doing other things 3 days of the week, not 2 days. I need 3 days to do other stuff. And so, even if it's intellectual stuff, like, I'll take it, like, I can't do the same thing for five days in a row. Everybody's different, and we're all kind of told what we should do and how we should live. And I think it's okay to challenge that and test it out. And if it works for you and you find the benefit, then that's your version of what should probably happen in your life. Like, I wasn't nothing was really happening when I was working less hours that was making me feel like maybe I need to go back to working more hours because I'm not doing well at work. I can't keep up with the demands. I could have worked a whole even less day. I could finish my work in 3 days, which was half the problem. I was like, well, I'm done in 3 days. It's just I have to be on the phone for 5 days. So it's like, the phone calls that can come in versus like the work I can actually get done with the phone calls I'm doing out, and like the work I'm producing, the goals I'm reaching, I could do it in 3 days, but spreading it out over 5 days is just like, why are you just like adding more salt to the wound? It's like, I could be doing other things with my energy and time that aren't devoted to this company that's barely paying me to work these extra couple days, a week, every week, and I was, when I got out of that and I'm like, let me just live my life the way I want to do it. I definitely learned from a lot of it, and I'm like, I don't really think I need people dictating to me what is right for me and my health, because I think I've discovered what I need for myself. A lot of it anyways, on a lot of different levels. It's just a matter of trying to implement things and kind of, work it into my life. And that's something that's a work in progress, but just kind of getting out of all these old cycles, all these old things that I was kind of taught by people who didn't have my best interest at heart, like some of them did and they thought they were doing well. I'm not talking about like family, I'm just talking about like, even if you think about bosses and stuff, it's like, yeah, they're going to tell you what they need from you. Like, they don't care what you need for you. I mean, they kind of care because they want you to come back, and they do care for your well-being. The good ones do, but still, your company has to make money, so that's what they care about the most. And, if you're costing the company, that's an issue. But if you're, helping the company thrive, they want you around. And they don't care what cost it is to you sometimes to help the company thrive. If you're just going to do it and they're going to benefit, they benefit from your work, and that's kind of how it is when there's all these different hierarchies. But I don't hate on it. Like, I don't. That's how the system works. Like, it's capitalism at its best. But I don't know. I'm a big, like, when it comes to quality, with people who are impoverished, people who already need a lot of help and have a system of trauma, a system that they've dealt with, systemic trauma, generational trauma, all kinds of trauma, and, providing them less services and giving them workers that are way overwhelmed. To me, that does not sound like a good plan. It's like, it's better than nothing, it's better than zero, but it's not good. It's not good, If I had kids, or maybe like elderly family, or anyone in my life who was like, should I engage in these services. Like, if I couldn't point them directly to a staff that I knew would be caring about them, if I couldn't point directly to a person, I would say probably no, but there are good staff out there. Some people are able to work with the system, but I feel like I've seen good quality care, and I feel like, the people who can afford it, the people who make money and their insurance pays for more higher quality services, I don't see how that is fair either. I think everyone should get equal quality services when it comes to healthcare, mental health care. I don't see why not, because then it makes the nation better if everybody's well. But, to keep people from accessing services where somebody answers the phone, or where your paperwork doesn't get lost in the shuffle, or you don't have a new caseworker every like 6 months, or your paperwork doesn't get lost in the shuffle somewhere, and some benefit you're supposed to get gets passed on to the third nurse, whatever it may be, like, it's not okay, it's not okay to treat people like that. But, I don't know, like, it is free, and I kind of know how there is this thinking about, like, if it's free, you get what you pay for, but also it's like, when people can't afford it, and they almost never will afford it, is that right? To keep people who can't work to actually afford better services, to keep them from having access to better services, is that okay? I don't think that's okay. So, I don't know. But that's just my opinion. That's my political rant on that end too. But, like, I always tried to do the best I could with my clients. And I still wish them all the best. But, yeah, I had to get out and do what's best for me. And I think a lot of them understood that. So, yeah, like, but, yeah, now I can be on here and talking about general psych topics. And, I can't provide any professional advice or anything, and I'm not providing therapy, and I'm not providing group therapy or facilitating any kind of professional thing. I'm not going by any kind of evidence-based practice or anything, but, I've posted stuff on here before that was kind of mental health relevant for, like, support services and stuff. It's back deep back in, like, some backlogged episodes. But, yeah, I hope this is helpful. Hope it's interesting. Happy day 8. Dude, are we on day 8? Yeah, day 8. Happy day 8. Tomorrow we'll be in a new chapter, and, I hope you guys are enjoying this book as much as I am. I'm really enjoying it. It's kind of my style, like, just thinking in this way. Just, like, kind of deep diving into stuff, and I'm in no way trying to throw family members under the bus or, like, whatever. I'm just calling it like it is. It's like, I have the right to my opinions, and I think anyone who's been put in a position where you've been maybe not treated well, I think commonly we're taught, oh, don't talk about it because it's wrong. It's like, no, I don't know if I agree with that anymore. Like, I don't think you have to put people on blast, but just talking about, like, general concepts that you're like, I know that this isn't good, I think that's fine to say. You shouldn't have to feel like you have to be silenced, keep things in the dark, just because somebody else is trying to shut you up because what they did was wrong. Like, usually that's one of the first signs that people aren't doing something right, is that they try to keep it in the dark. They try to make sure other people keep it in the dark. Like I think most people know, like, if there's, like, some parent abusing their kid or something, the first thing they're going to say, don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody about this. Like, You know, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, make sure you tell all your teachers and your principal and your pastor and your best friend's mom, and like make sure you tell everybody about this. You know, they usually try to keep it on the hush, and when they're approached by it, they lie. You know, usually the kind of lying and secrecy is usually a sign that something's wrong. And so, you know, I kind of don't really care at a certain point where I'm just like, look, I think sometimes people need to hear it because not everybody was grown up in was taught in a generation of how they need to address things or options of what you can do to address things. And you know, there are a lot of people out there that look like me that have a lot of parents and elders in their family that look like mine and have gone through a lot of the same things that a lot of my people went through, and I think a lot of us need to hear it. So I'm one of those people. I'm gonna put it out there. Like, I'm not gonna tell people to silence themselves, but also, you know, if you post something on the internet or whatever, you can't necessarily take it back. So, you know, that's one thing that I always think, that I'm like, what if these people see this? But, you know, it's maybe not always ideal to be name dropping and stuff, but you know, like, I think you have the right to say whatever it is that you need to say for yourself. And I'm gonna stop talking because if I don't, I'll just never end this episode. It's starting to rain for the second time since I've been recording, and it's dark now, so I'm gonna go in the house. And well, it's been dark for like 40 something minutes at this point, but it's actually dark now. But the sun went down around like 7-ish, 7:04-ish, something. But yeah, I'm gonna post this up and then get on with my evening. I've got some reading and studying I want to do before it gets like way too late and I start getting way too unorganized to actually function and focus. Alright, with that, thanks for listening. You know, man.